Welcome to Magic Arcanum. I'm Ryan Gomez. Behind the scenes is Nicole Burdick, and we're so glad you're here because it's story time. There are a lot of words that have a certain magical weight to them, but for me, one of the most evocative ones is ritual. It makes me picture witches in the woods, or cultists summoning a demon, or people chanting words into strength. And with this being spooky season, it felt like a great opportunity to look at how Magic the Gathering has made use of rituals over the last 30 years. But first, let me thank Into the AM for sponsoring this video. They're a downright magical clothing brand, and their new releases include the Ritual Tee, which was the inspiration for today's topic. Into the AM has a ton of designs that capture the feel of your favorite cards. So if you love the neon streets of Kamigawa, or want to show off your loyalty to the Dimir Guild, check them out using my link down below. Promo code Magic Arcanum gets you 10% off your entire order while supporting the show, and it stacks with their bundle deals, which let you grab 3 eye-popping graphic tees at an even lower price. Meat Hook Massacre may be banned, but you can still embrace mono black with one of their basic tees, a classic component of every wizard's wardrobe. Into the AM, Magic Arcanum, 10% off. You'll love to see it. Okay, now let's explore a history of rituals in Magic. The first, and undeniably most iconic example, was Dark Ritual, present in the game's alpha release all the way back in the summer of 1993. This card really is a time capsule. It's an interrupt, a card type they don't make anymore, and it spells out black mana in the text box rather than using the actual symbols. And that text box, along with similar ones found on cards like the original Llanowar Elves and Birds of Paradise, led to some confusion for early players of Magic. You see, kids, back then, the concept of the mana pool was not very well explained. A lot of players interpreted it to mean you put 3 swamps onto the battlefield, since they figured lands are mana. But that's not true. Lands create mana, which goes into your mana pool and waits to be spent on spells or abilities. Cards like Dark Ritual just bypass the lands bit and put mana straight into your mana pool, but it's a temporary boost and doesn't put more lands into play. Okay, so the original Dark Ritual was an interesting card just from the what the heck does this even do perspective, but there's more to it than that. It was also part of what we call the boon cycle. 5 cards, 1 for each color, that was supposed to grant you 3 of something for a single mana. This was one of the game's first attempts at highlighting the differences between colors by changing up what was offered for the same amount of respective mana. Lightning Bolt, for example, gave you 3 points of direct damage, a fundamental part of Red's color identity then, and just as true today. But Black's entry with Dark Ritual did not quite stand the test of time. This type of mana acceleration has moved to other colors, as we will soon see. First, though, we have to survive the Ice Age, where green gets the game's second ritual. And already we can tell things are wildly different. Ritual of Subdual is an enchantment, and as long as it stays in play, it makes all mana-producing lands produce colorless mana instead of their regular color. I gotta say, this guy's got the right outfit for a ritual, but I don't see a lot of action here. There's no book being consulted, no focal point for a ceremony. It's just a person standing on a suspiciously well-shoveled cobblestone walkway. Anyway, this type of taxing effect would not be Green's thing for very long. It's always fascinating to me how these early cards manage to still feel like part of Magic, even when they are so far removed from the modern color pie. Ritual of the Machine from Alliances is our first sorcery ritual, and this one lets you sacrifice a creature to take control of another, presumably better one, but it has nothing to do with mana. So is it really a ritual? Remember, the game is still young, and designers are experimenting with all sorts of ideas as they attempt to establish the major themes and abilities that make up the multiverse of magic. Which is probably why white was the next color to get a ritual with this aura from Mirage. It buffs up somebody's toughness and then draws you a card. Eventually. Not great. Fortunately, things get a bit better in Visions, which gives us Forbidden Ritual, which offers you a chance to repeatedly sacrifice your own stuff to try and bleed your opponent dry. At this point, we've gotten pretty far from the original idea that rituals relate to mana, but at least they are in flavor for black and doing some interesting things. Things like making zombies in the middle of the night. Midnight Ritual gets value out of your dead creatures and can drop a pretty big late game army if you've got the mana to pay for it. Maybe you can fund it with a Cabal Ritual, which finally takes us back to generating mana, though our rate of return isn't as potent as the original. Instead, we've got the ability to upgrade the payoff by having 7 or more cards in our graveyard, a mechanic called Threshold, which acts as a clever gate to this card's power level. Consider, fast mana is best when it lets you accelerate into something you shouldn't be able to afford, but by the time you've got 7 cards in your bin for Cabal Ritual to make extra mana, you could probably already pay for whatever else it was you wanted to cast anyway. Having said that, this card is worth about $10, and it's a common, so what do I know? Anyway, Onslaught's Brightstone Ritual has some great flavor text, and it's an interesting way to balance the power of fast mana once again. If you have a lot of goblins, you get a lot of extra mana, but if you already had that many goblins, did you really need this card? The answer is yes, because you can never have a fireball big enough. 2 years later, Darksteel gave us our first modern frame ritual. And boy, I'm really reaching now, but this one has nothing to do with mana. Unless you're using it to get back a Black Lotus. How about a ritual you can use over and over again? Check out Desperate Ritual from Champions of Kamigawa. For 2 mana, you can splice this onto an arcane spell as you cast it and generate enough mana to also play something else, without necessarily going down a card. Shadowmoor gave us Scarscale Ritual, possibly my favorite of the entire bunch, mostly for the flavor. A creature has to take on a -1/-1 counter, permanently making it weaker, but you get rewarded with 2 fresh cards, and the art and flavor text convey how these scars are, in effect, the price one must pay for knowledge. I just think that's a really cool design, and it feels ritualistic, even if it has nothing to do with making mana. Conversely, Landbind Ritual from Zendikar might be my least favorite on this entire list. It's very expensive, but also slow and weak. This would be a completely forgettable card if it were not for the fact that this ritual is the one that kept Omnath subdued. So maybe somebody should have been performing it in 2020, and then also in 2021. Core sets are a great time for the game to revisit classic cards, and M11 takes us pretty close to the original Dark Ritual with Pyretic Ritual. Okay, so maybe this one is strictly worse than Desperate Ritual, but I like the cleanliness of this design. It also has room for flavor text, and here on Magic Arcanum, that's worth like 1,000,000 bonus points. The Phyrexians are known for their all-will-be-one style of inclusivity, but sometimes even they have to show someone the door. One way they do it is with the Exclusion Ritual, an enchantment that not only removes a non-land permanent from the game, it prevents other copies from trying to take its place. Over on Theros, your journey into Nyx might let you perform the Ritual of the Returned, an interesting twist on a reanimation spell. It's an instant, and it's only 4 mana, but you don't get any abilities of the target creature, just a zombie token with their power and toughness. An empty, shambling shell of what the creature used to be. Perfect. No notes. Next! Conspiracy was an outstanding supplementary product for Magic. Every set now is designed to be drafted, but this one was designed to be drafted. And then played in multiplayer pods, which makes Deathreap Ritual a virtual bomb because it can trigger every end step, which means you can draw multiple extra cards every turn cycle thanks to combat steps you weren't even involved in. Spring Sage Ritual is just, wow, terrible. Blowing up an enchantment or artifact usually costs like 2 or 3 mana, and you can gain a lot of life for even just 1, so I have no idea why this is so expensive for 2 weak effects stapled together. It's even worse because this is from a set with Delirium, so your opponent probably wanted their artifact or enchantment in the graveyard, all of which makes this an embarrassingly bad card. Apparently, somebody on the design team took that as a challenge and went ahead with Ritual of Rejuvenation, which... Okay, so you've got the life gain again, and that's good, because vampires... Ritual of Soot. Blowing up stuff that costs 3 or less. Not a mana ritual, but definitely feels black. And that's good enough for me. Eldraine might have been one of the most overpowered sets of all time, but that's got to be in spite of its 2 rituals, and not thanks to them. Silverflame Ritual is an expensive way to put +1/+1 counters on your team, and Seasonal Ritual is a blink and you'll miss it adventure on Rosethorn Acolyte. To be fair, that elf druid at least looks like she's invested in her work, doubly so on the alternative art version of the card. Culling Ritual from Strixhaven could teach us all a lesson on how to make a fitting ritual for the era of Commander. This sorcery is a mini board wipe and mana generator all in one, with great art, and even has room for flavor text and a Witherbloom watermark. They really did their homework on this one. Why does it feel like every time rituals start to get good again, someone has to toss something like Ritual of Hope into the mix? It gives your team a temporary boost, but mostly serves to remind us Coven is a mechanic in this set, and honestly, I expect better from the Plane of Innistrad. It feels like if anywhere deserves a ritual as powerful as the original, it would be here, no? Alas, all Sorin's bloodline can muster is the overpriced Grizzly Ritual, probably in the set to remind us blood tokens exist. At least this one has some candles and runes on the floor. I mean, a ritual clearly took place here. It just happened to be on turn 6. Sadly, as of recording this video, that was the last black ritual printed. Battle for Baldur's Gate gives us Druidic Ritual, a green sorcery that mills you for 3 and then lets you select a creature and or land to bring back up to your hand. This was so weak, they had to give it a massive buff for the Alchemy Horizons version, and even that is probably one of the worst rituals ever digitally printed. Which leaves us with Psionic Ritual, a sorcery made for horror tribal commander decks. The ability to self-replicate and then cast multiple instants or sorceries for free does feel a bit like the fast mana generated by a dark ritual, but that's about where the similarities end. Fortunately, the legacy of the game's first ritual lives on. Liturgy of Blood doesn't carry the name, but does slip in the triple black pips we've come to expect from the darkest corner of the color pie. Dark Petition from Magic Origins rewards your spell mastery by giving you the mana to cast the spell you just searched up, making this sorcery a hybrid ritual tutor and a callback to 2 iconic black cards from Magic's Origins. For 30 years now, the game has shown us ways to tap into the magical powers of the dark arts. Sometimes we require a cryptic spellbook, sometimes a roaring flame, and sometimes it's the blood of our enemies. But no matter the source, we can't resist the allure of fast mana. Thanks again to Into the AM for sponsoring today's look at a history of rituals. Grab The Ritual or any of their amazingly comfortable tailor-fit graphic tees using the link below and save 10% with promo code MAGICARCANUM at checkout. Which ritual is your favorite? Let me know down in the comments, and then make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the great stories you'll only find here on Magic Arcanum. We'll see ya!